Welcome to a Forever Hunter build that can spawn constant stasis crystals, abilities that can slow and freeze PvE enemies so they're not even able to fight back. It's straight up bullying. Here's an idea of what the build can do. This build features permanent frost armor that gives you insane amount of survivability. This hunter runs around with about 50% in damage reduction. Not only that, but we also get a 20% damage increase to stasis weapons at all times. We also have the ability to spawn constant stasis crystals from Hell Barrage, Glacial Grenade, and Pillar of Ice. To get this started, there are two exotics you need to use. The first is Frostees. While you're sprinting, you have increased grenade, melee, and dodge regeneration. This is great for your cooldowns. You also get Frost Armor while sprinting, and when you have Frost Armor, your stasis weapons deal additional damage. In game, this shows off as Stasis Weapon Boost times 3, which should be the equivalent to 3 Stasis Surge mods. The Frost Armor from this exotic is one of the few ways we're going to give ourselves permanent Frost Armor. The next exotic we're looking at is Vergla's Curve. This is a stasis bow. It states that final blows with this weapon grant stasis arrows. Your next hipfire shot will fire all of them in a single volley. It also has the trait Hellstorm. It states direct hits with stasis arrows freeze combatants. Stasis arrows that impact the environment create stasis crystals. For the catalyst, it states that freezing or slowing a target grants this weapon faster draw speed for a short period of time. I'm going to share a tip so that you can maximize your plays with Vergla's Curve. Anytime you shoot out a stasis arrow, and if you shoot the stasis arrow with this bow, defeat from those crystals will refund Hell Barrage. If you pay attention to the gameplay, you'll notice that I'm constantly having Hell Barrage refunded to me at times, and that's because enemies are dying to the original stasis arrows from this bow. What's cool about the Hell Barrage tip is that it works with Shatter Dive. So not only do you shatter the crystals to give yourself frost armor, but any of those defeats will also proc the exotic perk on that bow. Because of this aspect, it only made sense to use a Glacial Grenade. It spawns even more stasis crystals, which fits with the theme. Shattering these crystals will also give you frost armor. This grenade also gives you pretty good damage. It freezes opponents and it can slow them. And if you haven't used this build in the past, you're probably asking the question if the defeats with a Glacial Grenade will work with the exotic perk on the bow, and unfortunately, no. If we add in the Withering Blade ability into this build, now we have a setup that can freeze, slow, and spread stasis debuffs across the field. To make the most out of these abilities and the stasis crystals, we're going to use Grim Harvest. Picking up stasis shards grants you stacks of frost armor. While you have frost armor, defeating combatants with stasis weapons may cause them to shatter, damaging nearby foes. The shatter chance increases with your frost armor stacks. And with this build, we're almost always going to have a max frost armor, so that chance goes all the way up. It also says that when we take damage while we have frost armor, we get class ability energy, which is great for cooldowns. At this point, we have frost armor from our exotic, from Shatter Dive, and from Grim Harvest. We also have the ability to just simply shatter enemies now with a basic arrow from our bow. But this is where we're going to start taking the build to the next level. We're going to cover the fragments, the artifact perks, and later show you the armor set bonus as the absolute best cherry on top. The first fragment we're looking at is Whisper of Rending. This makes our primary weapons do more damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. The bow has no issues destroying crystals, but we do want a 50% damage increase against frozen targets. It's free damage, but it also helps us chain freezes, and you'll understand why when we take a look at the artifact perks. Next is Whisper of Durance. Slow that you apply to targets lasts longer. For those abilities that linger, the duration will also increase. You might think this is pointless because the only form of slowing we have in the build so far is with Withering Blade. But this also works with Silence and Squall. It makes the slow version of the tornado last longer, and it will also work with our stasis crystals in the form from Hell Barrage or Glacial Grenade, and I'll show you how we're going to do that when we take a look at the artifact. Next is Whisper of Fissures. Increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or a frozen target. This is such a great bonus to the build to make everything with the crystals just do more damage. This so far works with the glacial grenade, any frozen target from Withering Blade, any target we shatter thanks to Grim Harvest, any of the crystals that we explode from Hell Barrage, and any target we freeze with our bow. That's right, our bow can freeze targets, and I'll show you how soon. The next fragment, Whisper of Torment, gives us grenade energy anytime we take damage while we have frost armor. This seemed like a perfect addition to the build because we have permanent frost armor, and as long as we're just playing the game, we're always taking damage, which means we're always getting chunks of our grenade energy back. I tested this versus Whisper of Shards. It gives me grenade energy when I crack stasis crystals, and I found Torment to be better. The last fragment is Whisper of Rime, and this one is very important. It increases the frost armor stacks and the duration of it. You see, naturally, without this fragment, you cap out at 5 stacks. But you see, with this one, we can go all the way to 7 stacks, and that gives us even more damage resistant, capping out to 50% DR. It also has a side benefit of frost armor obviously just lingering longer because now you have 7 stacks to degrade over time instead of just 5. So far, this build is amazing, but with the artifact perk, we're going to make it broken. We're using Queen's Foil Sensor. The first perk we're looking at, Fever and Chill, just helps with frost armor uptime. It says that if you get rapid precision hits with stasis weapons, you get that buff. The next artifact perk I want you to look at is Frigid Glare. This right here is one of the most busted perks. While frost armor is active, Stasis Precision Final Blows cause combatants to release a freezing burst. Keep in mind, this build has frost armor all the time, so our bow can constantly freeze targets. Targets that are frozen take more damage from the bow, and they also shatter to spread some damage. This is important because of the next few artifact perks. Hell the Storm, it states that shattering frozen targets and stasis crystals deal increased damage. Shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. Whether it's crystals from the Hell Barrage on the bow or the glacial grenade, or crystals because of the Frigid Glare perk, we take advantage of this perk all the time. Next is Pillar of Ice. Defeating a frozen target spawns stasis crystals. We're always freezing targets with our grenades, the Hell Barrage, and Frigid Glare, so this one's so easy to take advantage of. The last stasis perk here is Creeping Chill. Stasis Final Blows against slowed or frozen targets release a burst that slows combatants and grants frost armor to allies caught in the blast. This is huge because we can slow more enemies, and if they get enough stacks, they just freeze. It has good team play potential, it helps our teammates get frost armor, and if we're defeating targets close range, we can give ourselves frost armor too. With these stasis perks, Frostees, Hell Barrage, the glacial grenade, the fragments in the stasis subclass, the aspects, it all combines to be the ultimate stasis hunter build. It is so cracked. At this point, there are some rough edges that we need to round out so that it's better in normal play regardless of what activity you're in. For example, we cannot always rely on the stasis bow to give us the damage output that we need when dealing with yellow bars or a boss. That's why there's another artifact perk that comes in clutch, Perpetual Destruction. It says that rapid final blows with a non-exotic rocket will give us ammo and increases reload speed. This is awesome because we can use a rocket launcher, and the one that I have in this build is absolutely top tier. I'm using Overflow with Reaper's Tithe in frame reference. If I get multi-kills with the rocket launcher, now I have the origin trait and the perk increasing the damage of the rocket. What's beautiful about this is that I can swap it away and just hold that damage bonus until I'm ready to use it. It being stasis also takes advantage of the Frostees damage bonus. I have Overflow. Anytime that I pick a special or heavy, it makes this rocket launcher get 3 shots in a magazine, which is why in my subclass, if you noticed, I'm using Marksman Dodge. I just found this dodge to be pretty useful when I'm fighting like a boss at the end of an activity, so I can dodge, and I end up shooting like 6 rockets at once. It's really nice. Thankfully, this is preference. If you prefer getting more shurikens from Gambler's Dodge, go for it. I personally didn't find any issues getting my melee energy back thanks to Frostees and all the stasis shards that we make. And if you know where this rocket comes from, you're probably sitting there worried that I'm recommending a raid weapon to newer players. So don't worry, there are some alternatives like the Cold Comfort that comes from the Ghost of the Deep dungeon. Here on the screen is an an example of a role that I would use inside of PvE. All that matters is just having a good power weapon in your heavy slot that is Stasis to match the Stasis Surge from Frostees. If you're a solo player and you're finding yourself wanting more damage output, you can replace Hell the Storm with Solo Operative. While you're the only member in your fire team, Precision Weapon Final Blows increases weapon damage until you are defeated. This is very clutch for solo play. With that out of the way, it's time for the ultimate cherry on top, the armor set bonuses that makes everything feel so complete in this build. This is the Europa armor set, and the 2-piece bonus resupply states, after being out of combat for a moderate duration, your next final blow grants additional ammo progress and creates an orb of power. Next is the 4-piece From the Storm bonus. It says, after being out of combat for a moderate duration, slowly gain frost armor until you re-enter combat. This armor set is awesome because it feels like it combines with Frostees. If I'm out of combat and sprinting, I get my frost armor maxed out super fast. This is nice too because if I sit behind cover and I'm waiting for ads to respawn, I can get my frost armor all the way back up without having to be sprinting around and getting enemy aggro. At this point, we have frost armor from the armor set bonus, frost armor from Frostees, frost armor from Queen's Foil, and frost armor from our subclass. All combined, it's literally permanently a frost armor hunter. Before we move on to my stats and the mods that I'm using on this build, here, take a look at the special ammo weapon that I'm using. It's a rocket pulse, and I just like the perks here. Blast Distributor. If I do splash damage with this pulse, it gives me higher grenade stat. If I get a Stasis Shard, Collective Pugilism procs, and I can get defeats to give myself more melee energy. I'll be honest, the special ammo slot is definitely a flex. Use whatever fits for you. Now, for the stats and the armor mods. The first thing I prioritize in this build is weapon stats. Reason being is that we cannot actually add surges to our boots since Frostees already activates the surges for us. That means if we want to increase our damage further, we have to raise the weapon stat higher. I'm aiming for a minimum of 150 weapon stat, and we can push this further with some more mods. After that, I had to think carefully about what stats really matter for this setup. Nothing really stood out because I already have constant freezing and crystal spawning. My cooldowns are top tier, so I didn't need melee, grenade, or class stat to help me do what I was already doing well. I figured the best option here was to increase the damage of my super, as it helps my weaknesses in the build when it comes to doing damage against chunky targets. So for this stat, I'm aiming for 150 stats minimum. For the rest of the stats, I have 70 class, 18 grenade, 38 melee, and 33 health. Most of these stats would be higher if I could masterwork my armor. I'm broke on prisms, guys. Let's take a look at the mods on my armor. On the helmet, I have 2 super font mods. Combined, it's pushing my super stats higher, so it means even more damage. We have 1 harmonic siphon matching the bow. I'm getting so many stasis bow kills, so I make a lot of orbs. On the gauntlet, I have 2 grenade fonts. This is pushing my grenade stat much higher, so I actually get the glacial grenade back faster than you originally thought. And then I slap on a harmonic loader for the stasis bow. On the chest piece, I have 1 of each resistance, arc, void, solar. You can change these depending on the activity you're running. On my boots, since we don't need to run surge mods, I actually have a lot more freedom, which is why I'm using 1 innervation mod. This is going to help with the grenade cooldowns, 1 stasis scavenger mod, which matches my rocket launcher, meaning that I can spam rockets constantly if there's a lot of chunky targets, or if I blow through all the ammo defeating 1 boss and I need it again later. This combined with the artifact mod is very useful. And the last one is a weapons font mod. It's going to give me an increased stat bonus to the weapon stat, so that means that I'm doing more damage in PvE, but also increasing my chances to get a large ammo break. Lastly, on the cloak, I have powerful attraction. Anytime I dodge, I scoop up the orbs of power. Anytime I do dodge and I get a defeat with Reaper, I can spawn an orb. And then to make the most out of those orbs so that I don't actually lose my fonts, I have 1 time dilation. And with that out of the way, you have your ultimate frost armor hunter. This build is an absolute beast. I can't wait for you to try it. Thank you for watching.